May the 12th. Hello, listener. What have we got for you today on the Totally Football Show? Well, there's Adrian Clarke, currently suffering a slow death by hope.
Yes, the hope that kills you, but look, it's good to be in the race.
Well, that's for sure, isn't it? JJ Bull.
Hello.
Who thinks Gary Neville is special and wants you to know it.
That's right, yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, well, maybe
it's fun.
Maybe we'll share that with you later on,
That'd be
Adrian.
nice, yeah.
Also, Daniel Storey. Welcome back, Daniel Storey.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, well, when did you get back, Daniel?
Last night.
Oh, okay.
I flew back from San Francisco last
San
night.
Francisco. So you must be jet lagged.
Yeah, I woke up about 5:20 this morning, which gave me kind of 3 hours before anyone else got up to watch all of yesterday's football and record it, which is lovely.
How much of a struggle did you find this afternoon's Man United Arsenal as a result?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly what I was after. I mean, we'll talk about the game, I'm sure, but just Gary Neville saying with 20 minutes to go. Well, the thing I really loved about the game was Gary Neville saying with 20 minutes to go, do you know what? Manchester United will take this. They're only 1-0 down at home to Arsenal. The fans are players, they'll take this. And I thought, yeah, you're probably right, actually, which is pretty damning.
Pretty damning. What did you make? What did you think the Premier League scriptwriters meant by that sudden biblical downpour at the end? That felt significant to me, but I'm not sure what it presages. Something.
I think so. I have nothing to add to that. It was good. Yeah.
Excellent.
I've seen a picture of it. The picture was literally unplayable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just a few minutes after the final whistle.
I mean, the whole thing's falling apart, right? That stadium's in such need of doing up. I like the idea that it means something more, though. That hadn't even occurred to me, James. And I think that's great. I like it.
Well,
dark skies rumbling.
It's not just weather, you know. Anyway, should we check on the results around what is the penultimate weekend of the Premier League season? Arsenal won 1-0 at Old Trafford. Man City, meanwhile, were 4-0 winners on Saturday against Fulham. That means there's 1 point between them. So the title race is heading for the final day, although City's game on Tuesday at Spurs looks pretty key. At the bottom, Burnley are down after themselves losing 2-1 this weekend at Spurs. Almost certain to join them, and Sheffield United are Luton, who got beaten 3-1 at West Ham in David Moyes' home send-off. Forest, despite losing 3-2 at home to Chelsea, would now need to lose with a 12-goal swing to go down instead of the Hatters. Top 4 race is still on. Spurs moving to 4 points behind Villa with the Burnley win. Both teams still have 2 games to go. Spurs, as we mentioned, are up against Man City and then at Sheffield United, while Villa play Liverpool on Monday night and finish off at Palace. Palace, who this weekend continued their excellent form, winning away at Wolves 3-1. The other results were Newcastle and Brighton drawing 1-1, Brentford winning 2-1 at Bournemouth, and Everton getting their 4th win in 5, 1-0 against the Blades. Old Trafford first for us, though. Woohoo! It was a lovely goal, though, wasn't it, Adrian?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I mean, not so lovely if you're Casemiro. That is lazy defending at its finest, isn't
Which
it?
bit upset you most? The not jogging back or the standing watching while Trossard jogs past you?
Well, all of it delighted me.
Okay.
But yeah, if I was a Manchester United supporter, I think all of it would have made me angry. It's just so basic, isn't it? It's pub football. You go to get it off the goalkeeper, it doesn't come. You push out, and yeah, he just ambled out. And I did think that Havertz did ever so well. He didn't have a great game, Havertz. It was probably his worst game, maybe in 2024. But in that key moment, he made the right choices at the right time. Got to the byline, picked out Trossard, great run across Wan-Bissaka, and good night. It was a pretty poor Arsenal.
Was it
display.
quite a nervous game from an Arsenal perspective?
I didn't feel nervous about Manchester United scoring particularly. I didn't. I just. They were just so bad, aren't they? They're just so bad. I mean, Arsenal were way below par, but you never really felt threatened. I think they had one shot on target, which was kind of a cross shot from Casemiro. Everything else sort of missed the goal. Just Arsenal were nervous. I think Arsenal were nervous. They were leggy, and they didn't want to take any risks. And I guess that's because they've not been here before. I think it was purely down to let's not throw it away. And I feel frustrated because I would have loved Arsenal to cut Manchester United apart and put on a statement win, but it didn't happen, and ultimately that doesn't really matter.
Only their second win there in their last 17 visits. Man United without Fernandes, without Rashford, without Mount, without Maguire. Interesting, Wayne Rooney, after the game, JJ, suggesting that some of those players probably could have taken part if they'd felt there was anything to be gained from it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly who he's talking about, and I won't be trying to put names in mouths, but I mean, you can read...
Would it be a name with lots of consonants and not many vowels?
Well, you can read the injury list and then just pick one, I guess.
Right.
I mean, you've got Bruno Fernandes missing, you've got Rafael Varane, Victor Lindelof, Luke Shaw.
Right.
But the implication between him and Roy Keane, and they were saying that they've seen it in the past that players towards the end of the season, I don't know, you'd probably know Adrian better. Was that a thing you ever see where people would stop playing towards the end on purpose?
Maybe. Yeah, especially given how bad it is at the moment, how Ten Hag's on his way out. Maybe. But, this Manchester United dressing room stinks, doesn't it? It's just full of bad characters. So it would be probably the least surprising news of the weekend that one or two of the players could have played, but basically threw one in.
Like Casemiro, I don't want to jump on the bandwagon and pile into him, but it does honestly look like he's like a dad hanging out with the kids and he's just not really trying. He looks like when you turn up to five-a-side, you're like, oh, they're all just trying too hard, I'm going to stay back and just have a bit of fun. But when he gets the ball, like today, he didn't have any out ball at all. He had nothing. He was having to just lump it forward. And it does look like he can't not care. I can't believe he wouldn't care. And he's obviously professional and he's like an elite player. But it's so odd that seeing what's going on around him and then how he stands out in that. Because he must still be a good player. And it's funny that has happened.
Well, yeah, but leave football leaves you, etc. The Brazilian, the Seleção is moving on without him, isn't that right, Daniel Storey?
Yeah, he's been left out of the Copa America squad along with Anthony, so he'll have some... They can at least chat about that. And actually, it's a strong squad. They've also left Richarlison and Gabriel Jesus out. So, but yeah, Casemiro is a kind of standout because he was supposed to be still kind of sailing by on his Brazil form, and clearly they've been watching Manchester United too.
Who did you like about this in this game, Daniel? Do you want to mention William Saliba with the tackle that everyone's raving about?
Yeah, he was brilliant again. I thought he was man of the match. He had more to do than I thought he would do. Adrian talked about Arsenal being kind of risk averse and wanting to control it, and I think he's right. But to do that, he may have an opinion on this, I'm sure. But it felt like they picked the wrong central midfielders to do that. Thomas Partey is good at lots of things, but he's not kind of the guy who I'd take over Jorginho as we just want to pass Manchester United, kind of Manchester City style, cut out all the risks, control the ball, keep it. They weren't really doing that second half. They were forced into the Bukayo Saka was kind of having to kick it over his head 40 yards away, and it was a really odd performance from Arsenal. I thought they were still plenty good enough to win, and they scored the best chance of the game. But yeah, really strange performance. Saliba is just extraordinary for his age. Him and Gabriella.
I thought the reason Partey started might have been because, based on how Man United have played in the last few weeks or months, they know they're going to be that massively open in transition. So you have Partey, who's probably the best one at doing that from that position, the sixth thing. But then Man United changed their game to make the game more boring. They definitely changed the way they're playing so they didn't get torn apart. And I was looking forward to this being it could easily be like a 7-4 scoreline or something like that. They played it the old way, and it would have been really fun. And Man United games have been really fun to watch because they're wild. Whereas Arsenal's are so controlled that they can be quite dull, but they're in such control you have to admire what they are doing. And I thought that was interesting that the United went for that change to try and slow everything down, because it then made them completely... They had like a snake without teeth. They just kind of bumping into them.
Constrictor.
Yeah.
But
still trying to bite, I guess. Yeah.
I had hopes for Man United's clash with Newcastle midweek for being that kind of rip-roaring, devil-may-care, classic Premier League 4-3 style scenario, but by the sound of it, no. Everyone will be calling in sick, despite the email.
Well, Newcastle didn't seem that bothered the other day either. That was a pretty limp performance from them. Saliba was definitely the best player in this game. He was outstanding. He won all of his duels. He won all of his aerial duels. He timed everything properly. I don't think, Daniel, that it was Arsenal's plan to play this way. I don't, because they've gone away to most teams and seized control and passed through them and dominated and got 2 or 3 goals up and then kind of just chilled. They just didn't play very well. And I think sometimes when you're a bit nervy, it gets to your legs, it gets to your head, and they were just way off it. Couldn't get out of their own half at times.
It looked to me like the second leg of a playoff game when you've got a 1-0 lead or something like that, and you're not quite sure how to attack the game. And yet, without Bruno there, without Rashford there, with Manchester United missing so many players, I think there was an opportunity to really attack from the start and have a really fast first 20 minutes and kill the game off, which they chose the opposite. And they've won, so they don't care. Look, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, as Adrian said.
All right, Man City did kill the game off in their clash with Fulham Saturday lunchtime. The ground, of course, where Arsenal maybe blew the title when they lost there back on New Year's Eve. City didn't lose. They notched up their 16th win in a row against the Cottagers in all competitions, which is a new record for the most successive wins against a single opponent in English football history. Crazy numbers, as are the 5 goals in 7 games that previously no goals in over a year Josko Guardiola has scored. There's a big tactical reason for this, I imagine, JJ.
Yeah, well, there's a few things. I think we talked about this last time I was on the podcast, actually. Guardiola has said that with Guardiola, you have to be careful with that one, said earlier that Guardiola hasn't added anything to his game yet, because he wants to wait for him to settle into the team, because that's what we want to do, make sure players are all get chemistry all together. But like we saw with the Kanji and Stones, who've been moved into midfield quite a lot, and that kind of almost libero kind of thing. Now you've got Guardiola charging up down the left wing, but then coming inside to end up like the furthest forward striker. He's done it quite a lot recently. He's scored quite a few goals. But there was the tactical thing in this game against Fulham where they were just getting all the bodies in the middle of the pitch, and just like the old Man City teams having the fullbacks be the wingers, which is what they used to do. And they sort of did it a little bit against Brighton as well. I remember them doing that as well. And I think that might be just Guardiola tweaking things again with Man City, because they constantly evolve. They never stay exactly the same. And even you can see the difference, like going back to Arsenal, like United changed their out of possession shape to try and deal with how Arsenal build up, so they could press them in a certain way, and then Arsenal had to make adjustments to deal with that. But it's still similar to what they're doing most of the season, whereas Man City do change all the way through.
And how effective it is. They are averaging 4 goals a game in these 7 matches that they've had since they drew 0-0 with Arsenal, which, Adrian, means, you remember that unassailable goal difference that Arsenal had on their side were it to end up a draw, which, it could.
Yeah.
It could. If City were to draw at Spurs midweek, we go into the final day with it being just goal difference between them. Ooh, and it would be like a shootout across
now?
2 crowds.
I think
it's just 3.
They also have 3 advantage. Look,
and the way City are playing.
Well, yeah, they could, in theory, smash West Ham, I guess, on the last day. But so could Arsenal smash Everton, I think, potentially.
But what a
but it's exciting, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's brilliant. A little bit of jeopardy. Look, they've been superb lately. They've won each of their last 7 games by at least 2 goals. It's 4s and 5s every week. Haven't lost since that Villa defeat, which was ages ago, 6th of December. So, yeah, they've done what everybody expected them to do. And the Gvardiol progress is remarkable, because he looked pretty uncomfortable, I thought, earlier in the season. I thought he was the weak link in the side defensively, and he didn't offer anything going forward. And now doesn't make any defensive mistakes, and he's a brilliant winger.
Could have had a hat-trick.
Could have, and I think he wanted the hat-trick.
He wanted it.
But, yeah, he was ushered away, wasn't he, by the super professional City players.
Indeed so. Indeed so. Can Spurs stop them on Wednesday? Daniel Storey.
Come on, you Spurs.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Really? But the numbers, Daniel. Yes. Their record at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium reads played 4, lost 4, scored none. No goals.
Yeah, it is. And they are their bogey team under various different managers. I remember being at the Etihad for that Champions League second leg when City went out with the Raheem Sterling disallowed VAR goal in the 98th minute, whatever. And there was a period in time where they felt a bit cursed by Spurs, but one of those teams looks like they want the season to end desperately, and the other one is in that form that we knew they would hit at some point. It came later than I think we all thought. It's come via slightly different means than I think we all thought, given that Wolves at home aside, Erling Haaland hasn't really fired recently. But Phil Foden continues to produce astonishing numbers. He is going to be the flagship England player along with Jude Bellingham this summer, and it's going to be really interesting to see how we fit both of them in the same team, because he is just the control he has on the ball is just, it's a joy to watch. It really is. It kind of makes you giggle when you see him do something that to him is like really simple, and yet you could tear muscles and get headaches just from trying it yourself. He's in remarkable form. He's carrying that team at the moment.
25 goals so far this season. Anyone want to make the case for Spurs, how they might continue their logic-defying streak against City?
I can't quite. I don't see it. No, I think it's just the end of the season. The momentum's kind of lost. I mean, they still have to play for it, right? But
they're still in with a chance. This is the good thing. They still have that chance of making top 4. They've narrowed the gap with Villa to 4 points. Villa have tougher fixtures against Liverpool on Monday, and then remind me who they're playing on the last day. They are away at Palace.
Yeah, but if Villa win against Liverpool, it's done.
It's done.
So Arsenal will be cheering on Liverpool in this game,
yes,
so that Spurs have that motivation to try and win. The way that Spurs beat City in those Premier League matches was the Conte way, which was sort of very much low possession. Let's soak it all up, ride our luck, and then hit them hard and fast on the break. Well, Ange doesn't really do that, does he? And the kind of attack is the best form of defence worked quite well at the Etihad. Do you remember that game? 3-3. It was an absolute belter.
Was it 3-3 between them?
It was a brilliant game. Absolutely stunning game.
You'd take that, wouldn't you?
I would absolutely take that. But the worries for me is the FA Cup game. And I don't know if you remember this, the FA Cup game earlier on this season.
1-0.
City won 1-0. They scored their first ever goal at the stadium. And the stats that night, I remember watching it, it was so boring. It was one of the most boring games I've ever seen. Spurs had 1 shot and City had 18. This was at their bogey ground, so yeah, I'm a little bit worried that Spurs might not oblige.
Well, as you say, it does rather depend what Villa do on Monday. As to Spurs' motivation, a lot of Spurs fans feel pretty clear on their motivation anyway, whether or not there's the slim chance still of a top 4.
It's nonsense, though, isn't it? I mean, Postecoglou and the players will absolutely go for it if they can reach the Champions League, especially with Palace away for Villa on the final day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a losable game.
Yes,
they've got to go for it.
Yeah, I don't think for any second that Spurs won't try. I just feel like there's too much not connected with them right now. It's just a little bit.
Central midfield for Spurs has been bad for quite a long time now. I
also think James Maddison coming back has not really helped because he was brilliant early in the season. It felt like they slowly found a way to overcome his loss to the extent that now when he's back in the team, he looks a bit out of kilter. It looks like they don't really know how to use him. He's doing the thing that happened occasionally at Leicester where he's slowing down the moves rather than quickening him up, which when he's in form he'll do things with 2 touches, and he's taking 4 or 5 now. It's just not quite working. So
maybe the blend of players in that midfield, that's the thing that I think Bentancur plays a lot now, doesn't he? And that maybe they just don't bounce off each other. That happens sometimes. Some players just aren't better when they play together, even though they're both really good individually.
Fair enough. If it's quickening things up you want, Van de Ven, you can't say fairer than him, really, can you? And we saluted Guardiola's goal-scoring prowess, but what about Mickey Van de Ven's game-winning goal against Burnley, sending the Clarets down?
Yeah, the way he opened up his body was really good, wasn't it? He's had a slightly iffy period defensively. Yeah, I think he's terrible at Newcastle. That was only a few games ago.
Isak,
destroyed him. Destroyed him. But I don't think I thought at the start of the season Van der Ven was exceptional. But I don't think he's been as exceptional lately. But that was a beautiful goal.
And Porros wasn't bad as well. Also coming out of the Spurs defence.
Yeah, smashed it. Love those. When you don't think they're going to go in because they shouldn't shoot from there. Those are good goals.
They are.
Yes.
Here's a stat, JJ. Spurs have scored more goals this season than they did last season when they had a certain H. Kane in their ranks.
Well, I think they've actually had not a bad season. It doesn't look great when you think about it in the context, but actually, I mean, they've got more points than last season, so they are better.
All right,
sort of. Yeah, they've conceded 10 more than Everton, incidentally. So
well, yeah, but Everton.
They're pretty stingy. They've conceded the same amount as Fulham. So that's the area, isn't it? 50, right. I think if you concede more than 50 goals in a season, it's bad. Okay. If you're a top team. So
how about if you concede 82 and counting
in all comps?
Oh, that's in all comps. Yeah. That's Man United we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now they're worse since JJ.
The 1970-71 season.
Right. Okay. And Wednesday could see that pushed further back into the annals of history.
On Man United stats, they've also equalled their most home defeats ever in a season.
Oh, well done.
Now, level with about 4 other seasons, 9 home defeats. It's amazing how quickly we've adjusted to this being the new norm.
Indeed. Daniel, you're off to Villa Park on Monday night to see that key match between Villa and Liverpool. Let's hope Jurgen Klopp doesn't get a booking.
Yeah, Peter Drury gave me that information. I was not aware that he was one away. I'm sure he will avoid one. I'm really looking forward to seeing Villa at the moment, because like Tottenham, they also look like they're sort of desperately waiting for the end of May, running out of puff, as a number of teams are. Obviously, they've competed deep in competitions, went out in Europe, losing both legs to Olympiacos, which is a huge shock. This is... I fancy them on Monday night. I fancy them to win and get it done before the final day, which is not great for the final weekend, but they would richly deserve it over Tottenham.
Okay, there you go. We'll be reviewing that in Thursday's show. On Tuesday, you can get our thoughts on the European finals coming up and what happened in the semis and all sorts of other stuff as well. In the Totally Football Show European edition with James and Jules and Alvaro and Seb. Next up on this show, we'll talk about going down. Man United fans, better news from the women's team, which won the FA Cup final 4-0 against Spurs Sunday afternoon. Will that presage a similar scoreline in the men's version at the end of the month? Possibly, but that's maybe not a question that's going to be discussed much in full-time Europe, but lots of things relating to that game and women's football in general you can hear in full-time Europe, which is out on Tuesday. Good. First legs of the Championship playoffs took place on Sunday. Adrian, did you get much chance to see these exciting games?
I didn't, and it feels like a blessing, obviously, because I was working on the United-Arsenal game.
Right.
Two goalless draws.
Draws.
Not surprised, because I think Carlos Corberán, the West Brom head coach, would have realised his teams have got limitations, and he would have set out to stifle Southampton, and it, by all accounts he succeeded in that, and it was a really, really dull game. They had the better of the chances, I believe, West Brom. Norwich Leeds was a slightly better game. Leeds, I think, had chances to win it, couldn't, but I would imagine Norwich have a terrible away record. I think they're 19th in the Championship away table, so I think Leeds are strong favourites to progress in that second leg. But in a way, even though these were two dull games, it's basically a one-off now, isn't it? You got a final before the final.
Absolutely. Thursday and Friday, the second legs of those. The final a week on Sunday, so kind of 2 weeks from now. Those sides bidding, of course, to join Leicester City and Ipswich Town in the Premier League next season. Whoever does come up, we know now pretty much who's taking their places in the Championship. Burnley are officially down. Sheffield United already were. Luton all but certain to follow those two. Curiously, this will only be the second time in Premier League history that the three promoted sides went straight back down again. The other time it occurred, and this blows my mind, only once. At 97-98, it was Bolton, Barnsley and Crystal Palace who got the trip down. Luton, their ticket down's all but sealed. It's kind of requires them to win with a 12-goal swing, and Forest lose next weekend. But anyway, they lost 3-1 at West Ham in what was a game rich in significance. Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the David Moyes farewell tour ends. I know Rob Edwards, he was really emotional at full time, and he has done magnificent work during periods of this season. But I'm actually going to end up being a little bit disappointed in Luton, because they've taken 6 points in the last 45 available, 6 points in the last 15 games, which is the same number as Sheffield United. The Premier League is the financial inequalities mean that everything was stacked against them. We know this because they're doing the new stadium and they didn't want to overspend on the squad, and that's absolutely right. But they really did have a chance to stay up because of Forest's points deduction and the fact that Forest have been quite bad, certainly in terms of results, if not performances, over the last 4 or 5 months. And yeah, they didn't have to be much better. They lost at home to Burnley. They lost at home to Sheffield United. They lost 5-1 at home to Brentford. And nobody will have any regrets in terms of the support about this season, because they knew this was a possibility. But they really could have stayed up. 6 points from 15 games is dreadful when you consider that it's only ahead of Sheffield United on goal difference, and they've been a calamity. And the same is true of Burnley. I think it's been they are the most disappointing of those three clubs by a mile. They've been really dreadful. They spent £100 million last summer, and it's got them nothing other than instant relegation. So
on Luton, they score enough goals to survive comfortably. So really, that's the great frustration among Luton fans, I'm sure. But from the outside looking in, it's like, why didn't you sign better defenders in January? You know, they were in a great position. I think they were right in the mix to survive during the window. And they knew they'd lost Tom Lockyer. I think one of the Mads Andersen was out. Okay, they might not have read the script in terms of who else might get injured between now and the end of the season, but you just had to look at the squad, and they had 0 Premier League experience at the back. I think signed 2 decent centre-halves.
Do you think maybe it's just them going...
Not for loads of money.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wonder whether it's like we did this thing with the Athletic FC where we looked at on midweek, it was on Saturday actually, where we looked at why the managerial transfer market is it's weird at the moment. Hardly anyone's getting fired, no one's really moving. It's all to do with PSR and stuff like that. Yeah. But most clubs, like my conclusion is that most clubs are now run like businesses. They always were, but really efficient, like billionaire investments now. So everything's super efficient. So if you, you look at Luton, and then in January you're going, probably going to go down. So do I want to spend? And who do you get for like 25 million or something? Because that's the minimum good enough Premier League now. Who would then go to Luton knowing they'll probably go down? I guess it's just hard to find them.
I do understand it's not easy.
I get your point.
I just think that they showed slight lack of ambition there. Which is what you're alluding to. By the way, only 4 teams have ever scored 50 plus goals in their debut Premier League season, and Luton are among that. Okay. So Newcastle did it in the early 90s. Reading. And Blackpool, you remember under Ian Holloway, they were very exciting. So Luton had the tools to survive in terms of scoring goals, which is the hardest bit, I think, in the Premier League. But the other end of the pitch, just dreadful.
Sometimes it doesn't quite stick the first time you come up to the Premier League, and maybe having not blown the budget and with a better ground, they might be in a place to come back. Who of the 3 teams going down, asterisk on Luton, which do you think is most likely to return to the Premier League in the near future?
Burnley are. I think they. Yeah, I mean, I think they're in a kind of. This is not necessarily a compliment, but in their kind of sort of Norwich era of, if we stick with this manager, who has got bigger ambitions than us, but whose reputation has suffered this season, so may well stay. They made the mistake last summer of being incredibly naive in thinking that they could do this by buying a series of young, inexperienced players and hoping to replicate what worked so well in the Championship and the Premier League, and they've become completely unstuck doing that. I think they've only won 3 games, I think, against teams that they didn't come up with, and that's a huge issue. But there is a chance if they stick with company and be a little bit more savvy, just not be quite so bold in the transfer activity as they were last summer. They've been quite Nottingham Forest-like, actually. There's a series of £10 million signings there where you think, oh God, yeah, I'd forgotten that they signed him for £10-12 million. As I say, they spent £100 million last summer, which is a huge gamble to then finish 19th, which they probably will. But they are in the best position to come up because Luton are concentrating on fabric of the club and new stadium, and Sheffield United, goodness knows what happens with them next season.
I was going to agree with Daniel exactly with that, but then say almost the thing we're talking about there is the recruitment is the important bit, because that's the bit they got really wrong, I would say, in the summer. But they've got like some of the players that were in the Championship team that got them up, then they just sort of got dinghied left on the side, and now they're probably going to want to leave, right? Because I don't want to stick around now if you don't want me now.
Yeah.
So then that's a difficult thing to manage.
But the players that they brought didn't have Premier League experience, which I just thought was bonkers, because they weren't really any better than the ones that had got them up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So they kind of might as well just stick with this group now, who were probably Championship level anyway. You know, that's probably how I see it for Burnley moving forward. I wouldn't do a lot of business if I was them. No, I think, I agree. I think they've got the best chance of the 3.
Okay. Next up, let's talk about Chelsea, who could just make it into Europe. Chelsea, everybody, they just had their 3rd straight win. Their first away victory in 3 months, but still, since Boxing Day, only 3 other sides in the Premier League have picked up more points than Pochettino's outfit. That's Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool, of course. They've also just got Reece James back as well. This weekend, they beat Forest 3-2 at the City ground to move up to, I'm looking at the Championship table, that's not going to help me. To move up to 7th, I think. Let's see. Yeah, they're level with Newcastle. Crikey. And Newcastle, I got that game away at Man United. Didn't look great this weekend, and the 1-1 draw with Brighton. While Chelsea did look good. Reece James back. Cole Palmer doing a Toni Kroos with that
Good pass. I would say that the Toni Kroos pass was, I mean, that's unbelievable, the way he threads that through.
Had a better camera angle on it, though, because they had the spider cam following it up the pitch.
I think that's one of the things that makes it look better, It's the angle. It's so weird. I was thinking the same thing. I don't want to take away from Palmer's, because that's obviously great, but then it's also more surprising that Mudryk then does something good on the end of it, which makes it seem so much more valuable than Toni Kroos, because Vinicius Junior was fantastic. On Chelsea being 7th, there's this... a wild hot take of mine is that if you look at a league table and you look at goal difference, you can normally tell who the best teams are. And although the actual goal difference is Chelsea at plus 12, which is the same as Spurs and not amazing, their underlying numbers has them at plus 17 expected goal difference. So they, I mean, I know it's not a way to measure how you're the 4th best team in the league. I know that doesn't make sense. But yeah, I'm going to say that they've actually finished the season quite well, and it's coming together a little bit.
So if the likes of Nicholas Jackson had finished more chances, they'd be doing better in the table?
I worked it out for a video I did actually in the season, and I can't remember what it was, but it was a lot of points, and they'd be really high up. And that's just the difference, right? If you have an actual striker who can finish. I mean, the better players win you games, but you have to have a team that's cohesive, and the chemistry has to be there. And that's taken most of the season to get that together. And now you're starting to see some of it work. And it sounds like Pochettino's maybe not going to... I don't know. There's a lot of noise around his future at the moment now. Yeah,
is there?
He's saying things in the press now that are that alludes to him. You have to talk to the owners and see what they want. And I don't know. Have you not seen? Yeah,
I hadn't seen that. But wow, that's dramatic. What I had seen was a stat which again surprised me somewhat. That Nicholas Jackson's actually scored more goals, not including penalties, than Mo Salah this season.
Wow, that is a good stat.
I wonder if it's true. I mean, it's certainly remarkable. He's scored 5 in the last 6 Premier League matches.
Yeah.
And famously, they weren't from the spot because, you know.
Yeah, it was a great cross, wasn't it, from Reece James to pick him out. So, yeah.
Reece James being back. Will he stick around this time?
Well, look, they've got Malo Gusto, who's kind of been one of their best players this season. So they've got 2 very good right-back options. But, yeah, that Palmer pass was sublime. Forrest had 20 shots in this game. I do think the
Callum Hudson-Odoi goal.
That was a good goal, wasn't it? He's finished the season brilliantly. Gibbs White got his 10th assist of the campaign. He's a talent. So they're two guys that are more than worthy of being in the Premier League. But I still think Chelsea are a little bit too flaky / get-atable. Right. If you can get at their defence, they will crack.
Should we get a word from the hugely jet-lagged Forest fan?
No, fully awake, I mean, I left England not believing it possible that I could have a stress-free final weekend, and I think even Forest can't manage a 12-goal swing. And there's a few years ago where we did manage a 7-goal swing on the final day to fall out of the playoffs in the Championship, which is a good effort. But I think we'll avoid that this time. And yeah, we are maddening because you can watch Forest, as Adrian's kind of alluded to, you can watch them and think they are 1 or 2 little tweaks away from being a mid-table Premier League side. Dare we dream? But
need a couple of
game
signings,
management. Well, yeah, good. I mean, 8 to 10 probably. But the game management is appalling. They basically they played with a one-man mid. They made a change. Went with this kind of one-man midfield in Danilo, who tires in the last 20 minutes anyway. Scored a goal despite being battered for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then left it as it was and conceded twice in 3 or 4 minutes, and then made the change.
What's happened to Nuno? Nuno was so dull at Wolves, as in
he's just loving life, isn't
defensive.
He? Will Nuno...
The interesting thing. Were you going to? Sorry, James.
I was just going to ask if Nuno was still going to be around next season because his numbers are not great.
That's the really interesting question. He now has got 0.5 points per game at Forest in the Premier League. Steve Cooper in the Premier League at Forest got 0.95 points per game. So exactly neck and neck, and Steve Cooper dealt with a lot last season. It has been underwhelming, but I think we have to give him a full pre-season. He came in a non-ideal time. He wants a small squad. We're about to get about umpteen players back from loan deals this season. That's going to be really interesting to manage. As you also allude to, they'll probably sign 7 or 8 players. So, yeah, I'd give him pre-season, and he'll probably get sacked in October, and we'll do the same dance again.
All right. Anyway, well done, Forrest. And let's see what else has happened this weekend that we should mention before we wrap up today's show. In Scotland, JJ, Scottish Premiership is over. All but.
Well, I mean, Celtic have won it, basically. I think far more interesting, though, is that Aberdeen beat Hibs 4-0 today. Yeah. And a 16-year-old came off the bench to score in his debut, which is nice. Oh, yeah? Isn't that lovely?
What's his name?
His name is on the tip of my tongue. He'll be on the tip of everyone else's tongue soon.
Oh, yeah?
He's born to be a star. Fletcher Boyd, of course, is his name.
Fletcher Boyd, that's a great name. Well done, his parents.
Named after two, Scottish international strikers.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's all right. How they make them now, yeah.
It's not as memorable as, is it George Earthy?
George Earthy.
I
enjoyed the celebration. Yeah, it's really... Just when you see a young player, was it the Chelsea player earlier this season? Was it Alfie Gilchrist who scored? Just seeing a young player come off the bench and score, and with the Chelsea guy it really didn't matter because it was an irrelevant goal. With Earthy, I love that celebration. He was it's a great moment.
He sat up on the hoarding.
It's quite a good celebration for a rookie, wasn't it?
I wasn't sure if he was being guided through it by, was it Mo Kudus?
I think so. Yeah. Was it Kudus likes that, doesn't he? Yeah, that's his one. So it was nice.
George Earthy looks unacceptably young to be playing professional football. It's just like making us all feel old with these like tiny kids running on the pitch and being good is unacceptable.
Yeah, thank goodness for Casemiro. Let's see what else this weekend. Everton won, Sheffield United 0. As mentioned previously, that's now 4 wins in their last 5 for the Toffees. The other game was a draw. Only Arsenal have kept more clean sheets than Everton in the Premier League this season. Good Lord. Good Lord.
It's pretty impressive, actually, isn't it?
Sean Dyche.
He's good at making a defence work, isn't he? And they're also very, very good at set pieces, despite not having a set piece coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they divvy it up. So they've got Steve Stone and what's his name? Is it Ian Woan? Is that his name?
Woan, yeah.
Woan. So they do attacking and defensive set pieces on their own. But they're like, I think Arsenal have the most set piece goals.
Right.
And Everton have, I think it's the second most in the league.
Yeah.
There's lots to enjoy and lots to feel positive about with Everton on the field, but off it, increasingly dramatic stories about the collapse of the year-long negotiations with 777, to whom hundreds of millions of pounds are owed, and the possibility even that the club, for all the success in avoiding relegation, might now end up in administration in the near future. Daniel, can you, having just got off a plane, shed any light on this?
Yeah, I mean, the 777 takeover it's been obvious to people that want to see it for a long time that it's not fit for purpose in any way. The Everton supporters they're not best mates with the Premier League at the moment, but they should at least be grateful that the Premier League asked for further and further information to accept that takeover, because Farhad Moshiri was very keen on it for a long period of time, for too long, until it's been obvious for a while that it's not a good thing for Everton to be owned by 777. If you want enough evidence, then just go and speak to the supporters of the other clubs they own, including Standard Liège, who were protesting this weekend again. The issue is where that leaves Everton, because benevolent owners prepared to take on hundreds of millions of pounds of debt are not growing on trees, and they haven't stepped up until now. What's the reason for them to step up now? What they may prefer is to wait until the club's gone into administration and therefore defaulted on some of its debts, and they take on a more attractive proposition. That administration costs Everton 9 points. There is an argument. There's no evidence that they're going to do this, but there is an argument for Everton trying to push for that this season. Now we know they're going to finish more than 9 points above the relegation zone. They could try and take the hit this summer, but then that creates a very small window to get everything sorted out before the start of next season. It is a grim situation. There is a great piece by Matt Slater in The Athletic at the moment, which kind of details everything. I think he basically takes each of the possibilities for what happens next in turn and goes through them in order of how likely they are to happen. And the conclusion is that none of them are attractive in any way.
And there's no scenario in which Moshiri just continues to bankroll the club.
Well, it would seem, if that was an option, that he would have already considered it, or he at least would have continued to bankroll it rather than loading the club with more debt to 777 who have
Right.
already loaned them, and to the people who have loaned the money for the stadium build. It would seem odd to now decide on that. I think the more likely scenario is that MSP, who have already loaned them money, MSP Sport Holdings, take control of the club. But again, it's an unideal situation. The things we know is that Everton are hugely in need of another bidder, and that they are going to have to sell players to meet PSR this summer and to pay the bills this summer, I suspect, which is Jared Branthwaite and Amadou Onana, who both of which we expected to be sold, but that's going to have to be done on a pretty damn quick basis, I think.
Pickford as well. I think he's another that could go, couldn't he? He's got value.
Also this weekend, Brentford won 2-1 away at Bournemouth. And should we finish off with another little celebration of the extraordinary form that Crystal Palace are in this Saturday afternoon, going to Wolves and winning 3-1 with that front three.
Yeah.
Wowing everyone.
Yeah, Michael Elise put in one of the performances of the weekend, maybe one of the performances of the season. He was just sublime. Great goals, good assists. Wharton's on fire, isn't he, in the middle of the park? There was talk of him being going to Bayern Munich or something, I read this week, which seems crazy to go from Blackburn to Palace to moving to Bayern Munich.
There was also talk of Oliver Glasner being on the Bayern radar. But
Bayern, they're not shopping in their usual places, are they, Bayern Munich? But yeah, he's been a great signing. I wrote a piece on Glasner's Palace last week, and everything about them is so much more positive now. It's just assertive.
So what's the difference between this and when Roy Hodgson came in at a similar point last season and they suddenly started scoring?
Well, it's a different system. So they got a back three, because he's got Eze and Elise in the right positions as these twin number 10s. That's where they want to be. He's got two really attack-minded wing-backs that are supplying all the width. So Eze and Elise are now, instead of being the ones that cross the ball in, they're the ones that are in field where they can really do some damage. Mateta is benefiting from having Eze and Elise closer to him. The pressing is the key thing. I sort of did a study on a lot of the goals that they scored, and so many came from turnovers inside the opposition half. Now, under Roy Hodgson, they really just sat back. And if they were going to turn the ball over, it's kind of on the edge of their own box. Yeah. That's the big difference. So, very, very impressive from Glasner. They look a modern team all of a sudden.
There is another secret as to how they are winning games that I discovered. I also did a thing on them last week. Yeah. So if Eze plays, they win.
All right.
So they win 40% of their games when Eze's on the pitch this season. It goes back to last season as well, I think, though. And when he doesn't play, I think they win 9% of their games. That is the secret. But also, it is also all the things that Adrian just said, and the high line, they're all actually together, so you can actually pass, and you've not got Mateta up front on his own 10 miles away from everyone else. Yeah, exactly.
So if they're going to sell one of their star players this summer, it's got to be Elise. Poor old Eze. Why, you can't sell someone that...
But he's the only reason they win. It's like a I don't know what kind of thing, like a Horcrux in Harry Potter or something.
Is there any way that Palace can hang on to those players and build on this end of season?
There might be. The issue is that Michael Elise here has got a release clause and everybody knows it, and it's high, but it's not frighteningly high for clubs. The good thing for clubs like Palace, they're not the only ones, is that everybody's pretty short of cash this summer. Everybody's most clubs need to sell before they buy. Proven Premier League experience, proven success in the Premier League is still going to be attractive, and that includes Elise and Eze. I think the best option is to try and sell one of their defenders, maybe Mark Gahey, because I think that's the best central defensive combination outside the big six, Gahey and Jercham Anderson. So if they can keep hold of one of those and sell the other and try and recruit well, which they have done, they've recruited really well from the Championship and from abroad, Palace, then that's the chance. They're going to have to sell one because everybody's got to sell one this summer. But
if you're Eze or Elise as well, it feels like you're outgrowing that team, unfortunately. As well as Palace are doing, they've got a ceiling, haven't they? And Eze and Elise are running amok in the Premier League. I think they should really be in the Champions League club.
There's just too many good players, though, isn't there? Because, I mean, you go through every club and you think, well, Bruno Guimaraes should be in the Champions League. Yeah. Paqueta and Kudu should be in the Champions League. Yeah. Morgan Gibbs-White's had a brilliant season. He got, there's so many and there's just not enough money to go around now. You're right. Those players, those players are just not going to... I think what we're going to see increasingly is players maybe not moving so much because there isn't, until the rules change, there's just not enough money to spend.
Oh, that sounds good.
Left Fletcher Boyd out of that list, though.
Oh, yeah. Palace's form under Glasner has been top 4-esque, though, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. It's been superb, but yeah, I wouldn't expect them to be challenging for top 4 next season.
All right, we'll check back with you next.
I just think one of those guys might, I'm not saying they'll push for a move, but you get one career, don't you? And I think that if they know that a big dog is after them, it's hard to...
Especially if it's Bayern Munich with their Palace snooping ways. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, I mean, I think if that's everything, we should let Daniel get some rest ahead of his trip to Villa Park and Thursday's debut in this year's Intertotally when he'll be taking on producer Charlie. Yikes, you'd forgotten about that, hadn't you?
Stitch up. Yeah, it's funny how that draw was made while I was out of the country.
Hey, I made that draw, and I can tell you, it was completely legit.
That's complaint number 2.
Anyway,
it was very high tech, wasn't it?
It was
James?
high tech.
Yeah,
there were names and a hat.
In a cup, wasn't it?
Was a cup, actually.
Yeah, it was a cup.
Right, no hat.
Yeah.
Daniel, best of luck with your trip and look forward to speaking to you on Thursday. Thank you for being with us today. Adrian and JJ, to you as well. And to Liam and Charlie in the booth, a new listener. As I say, there's loads of other stuff coming out. There's a Euro show on Tuesday with the boys. So hopefully you'll join us for that. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around. And the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.